Are you ready?
Oh, you're gonna come
Maybe you jump in too.
Woo!
All right. And we're ready to go. Okay. So we're not going to have slides for a little bit, but I believe in you. You can use your imaginations. Just pretend that I have the best slides in the world behind me, okay? All right. We've got, yes. Oh, I like the attitude in here. You must have remembered that we're closer to lunch. Great. Hi, I'm Colleen, and I'm sure at one point during the improv, they told you what the talk was about. We're doing a people pleaser's guide to salary negotiation. So what does that mean? Why am I giving it? What are we all doing here? All right, so I am not an expert at negotiation, but I used to really suck at it. Like, I just was terrible. I am a people pleaser. I come from a long line of people pleasers. I'm from the American Midwest. I think it's just that. But when I first started out in tech, I did not understand why people really wanted to hire me. I was like, oh, they're going to give me money? That's a bad decision, but okay. And so before I took my first real tech job where I got actual money, I asked my mom for advice, who you may remember is a people pleaser, actually a worse one than I am. And we've got an agenda! All right! Oh, this is wonderful. All right. So I asked my mom. This picture of me with my dog, by the way, so you all like me more. Yay, people pleasing. I asked my mom, and she gave me the worst salary negotiation advice that anyone in the entire world has ever gotten. Would anyone like to guess what that is? Anyone? I will pick randomly. Just take it? Okay. All right, yeah. Somehow even worse than that? I feel like that's not really advice. So, more as a terrible opinion that many people who are not my mother probably have. No. Her advice was just tell the hiring manager that you trust them and are sure that they'll give you a fair wage. Please, for the love of God, be smarter than I was, and do not ever say that. But unfortunately, I had like one brain cell in my head that day, and so when I was negotiating, I said that verbatim. Oh, I know. Later, by the way, I found out that my colleagues with the same or less experience started anywhere from 5,000 to 20,000 more than me. Yeah, do not listen to my mom for salary advice. It'd be really weird if any of you knew her anyways. But since learning to properly negotiate, I have increased my salary by 85% in the last 2 years. Now, some of that's experience, but some of it is actually being confident saying no to insulting offers. It's really scary, but I've gotten offers raised by 30% while also not being a jerk and following standard negotiation advice that I feel is written for heartless people who don't care what anyone in the entire world thinks of them, which is really a great trait. I wish I had it. But, all right. So who here actually identifies as a people pleaser? Anyone? Oh, I see a lot of hands. Wonderful. It's terrible, actually. I hope we all kind of grow past this. It's a flaw. It's probably not the best, not the worst. I guess it's better than being one of those people who's just like, I'm just being honest. This is my opinion, and I must share it with everyone at all time. But all right, so there are no actual studies that I could find, and probably anywhere, about the correlation between being a people pleaser and being terrible at salary negotiations or just not doing it. But I'm going to ask you another question. Who in this room negotiated their salary for the job they are currently in? Show of hands. All right, I'm noticing that all the areas that had the people pleasers don't have as many hands up. Science! So why does this actually matter, and why am I giving this talk? Great question. Thank you, me, for asking it. So 57.4% of people accepted their current job without negotiating. These are Australian stats, by the way. Americans are slightly more negotiating, or slightly more prone to negotiating. But 57.4% of people accepted their current job with no negotiation. And why does that actually matter? Because 64% of employers expect you to negotiate. And if you do negotiate, 85% of people who try get something of what they ask for. Maybe not all of it, probably very rarely all of it, but never give them the actual number that you want. Give them a number that's like 10K higher. And you'll at least get something if you ask for it. If you're part of the 85, or if you're part of the 15% who don't, maybe it's time to look at someone else. And full disclosure, I did write this talk before all of the mass tech layoffs. So there was a little bit more leverage there. But that doesn't mean that you shouldn't negotiate. It just means that it might be a little trickier now. So what does this reluctance to negotiate mean, and who is actually impacted by this? You're all smart people, so I think you can probably guess that a lot of people pleasers, specifically 30% more women, say that they're people pleasers compared to men. And I will say for these statistics, they are men, women. I could not find any studies that actually included non-binary people. I'm sorry, but here's the data we've got. So 30% more women are self-described people pleasers, and 51.3% of men negotiated salary for their current job. Conversely, the people-pleasing women over here, only 35.8% negotiated. And this might partially explain the gender pay gap, which, compared to median weekly earnings of white men working full-time, Hispanic women's full-time earnings in 2021 were just 58.4%, black women's 63.1%, white women's 79.6%, according to the Institute for Women's Policy Research. And it's not just that women aren't doing it, though. It's that 60% of job offers extended to men are greater than those of the same level extended to women, which, if you look at the other numbers, is greater than the amount of men who are negotiating. So it's not just that women need to lean in and be a girl boss. Dear God, no. Because it's a system that's not necessarily stacked, a system that's stacked against everyone who's not a white man. And I used to, when I first started telling myself that I needed to negotiate, I started looking at all of the traditional advice. It's like, project confidence. Don't be afraid to be a jerk. Never say please was actually in one of them, which I think my heart would die a little bit. I cannot imagine that. And I read another, by the way, which was, don't say thank you. You deserve it. Which I feel like, again, written for heartless robots. And I'm a big fan of robots. So these are written, like many things in this world, they're tailored towards white men. And I used to kind of try to do this. I had a saying. I don't know how many of you have watched 30 Rock. If you haven't, you are missing out. But I would always say, what would Jack Donaghy do? But there's a problem there. And the problem is, if you are not a white man, negotiating using these tactics backfires tremendously because you're held to a different standard. If you are a woman or underrepresented minority, you're considered pushy, aggressive, needy. Should we even hire them in the first place? You're considered like you're asking too much for asking the same thing. And it sucks. So I had to move on and find something because, oh yeah, even if you tried internally, from people who ask for raises, 300% more are approved for men versus women. Still not like a really high number, but it's still 3 times as much for men. It's, if I remember correctly, it is like 15 versus 5, which still way lower than I thought. So yeah, we talked about this a little bit. Implicit bias, explicit bias, they are here. There's a lot of research that proves it. And we're not going to fix inequality with a conference talk and a can-do attitude. Any of you who thought we were, like to live in your little bubble. That sounds wonderful. Men are offered higher salaries than women. White men are offered higher salaries than anyone else. And for the same job, it usually happens before negotiation. This is unfair. But what we can do is try our damnedest to get the wages that our peers are getting, and we can actually try. Again, leaning in is bullshit. But sometimes you've got to do a little bit of it. You have to put forth the effort and at least try to negotiate. So find the process that you're most comfortable with, and all that matters is that it actually works for you. So with that said, I have a strategy. This is a series of tactics, many of which are really silly, but actually helped me do this and have been effective for me. Some of them, ridiculous, won't work for you. This is not a prescriptive, fits-all strategy. Pick and choose. If you're interested in one of them, try it out. All right. Oh yeah, before we go there, we got to remember one thing. Villain in this story, capitalism. Always capitalism. One of my favorite podcasts, by the way, has a saying, it was capitalism all along. It's really true in everyday life. And what this actually means here is it kind of comes down to class background as well. So people coming from poor backgrounds into tech often are just thrilled to get money because it's more than their whole households have seen. Or in my situation, a lot of my friends are teachers or social workers, and they are horribly underpaid. And so asking for a number when I am offered a salary that is already 2 to 3 times what they make, and I send it back and say, no, that's not enough money for me, it feels so weird. And it's so hard in your head to rectify the fact that getting paid more than people who honestly do way more for society than me isn't actually a problem with me, it's a problem with the system. And accepting less money just because you feel bad that they have it really lets capitalism win. Never let capitalism win. Also, I have a bullet point on there that just says salary does not determine human worth. If any of you need that bullet point, that is really sad. All right, so on to the actual tactics after we've gone on the capitalism rant. Tactic 0, because you people here start counting floors as 0 or G, but I wasn't going to do a tactic G, that's silly. Remember that the goal of your negotiation is not to have a new best friend. Be nice, be yourself. If you decide to take the job, you can become best friends with the person later. This is not the time. This is the time to ask for what you want. Be as nice as you want to be, but realize that niceness is not what is most necessary in this situation. All right, now tactic 1. Yeah. Research heavily, determine your non-negotiables, find every single piece of data that you can about the position you're going for, the salary usually given it, the salary given to past people who've had it, Glassdoors, levels.fyi, a lot of these are really useful. One thing that I've actually found useful, if you really want to be a little creepy, is finding a person who used to have this job at this company on LinkedIn and asking them if they have some dirt to share. It works. It is wonderful, especially if they're like a little annoyed. Beautiful time. So determine your goals, but it shouldn't just be salary. There are other things that you can negotiate besides salary. You can negotiate to be fully remote. You can negotiate vacation days. You can negotiate having a vacation that starts as soon as you sign on, but that doesn't actually take away from your PTO. Or you can negotiate a sign-on bonus. I once got like $5,000 just by saying, hey, can I have $10,000 for signing this piece of paper? They gave it to me. I thought they'd say 0. I have never made that much money for that short of a sentence. It's ridiculous. But have this written down. Have this written down for yourself. Have it in front of you while you're interviewing, and be prepared to walk if they do not meet what you have determined to be your worth. Also, talk salary during your first contact with an actual human. But, don't be the one to actually say the number first. But if you're talking, that slide was not where I thought it would be. If you're talking to a person, first time, recruiter call, at the end, they're usually going to ask you what your number is. Get their number. Find out what band they have. I'll have a script for this later, but I feel like it's relevant here too. All right. Tactic 2. Find motivation. So I am a complete, tiny little baby when it comes to things that intimidate me. When I have to do something scary, like negotiate, have a conversation where you ask for something, when I have to do something scary, I make myself a little prize scheme. Those of you who were children at some point, which I hope was all of you, may recognize this as something that usually is given to 5-year-olds for behavior. I am apparently as bribable as a 5-year-old. So it's a little ridiculous. If I can get the offer up by $10,000, then I get a fancy latte from my favorite coffee shop. Negotiated a sign-on bonus? Croissant. Extra vacation days? Guess who gets to watch her favorite movie tonight? It's me. It's stupid. It's silly. It works really well. My other tactic is to to make up an imaginary enemy and pretend that they're going up against you and they already have a higher offer. Like, this could be anyone. This could be real. This could be fake. My person is this guy at a hackathon once who dismissed my suggestion by telling me to be more ladylike. Yes! I'm kind of glad he did it at this point, because there are so many accomplishments in my life that were directly related to spiting him in my imagination. Oh, he doesn't know this, but I've beaten him at 12 hackathons since then. Then the last one, just for motivation, is if there's something that you're holding yourself back from because of your salary or because of something else, look at pictures of it. When I was looking for my current job, I really, really, really wanted a dog. But dogs are little money-eating machines. Like, oh my gosh, from the vets to everything, she was a rescue, but still. And so what I did was I just had pictures of really cute dogs on my computer screen during negotiations, which I kind of recommend. Even if you don't want a dog, it's really relaxing. Look, I said that this wouldn't work for everyone, but it worked for me. Here's the dog, by the way. I did get the job. I did get the dog. And tactic 3. This is kind of rolled into all of it, but it's important enough to get its own slide. Project false confidence. This will probably only take you a total of 15, 20 minutes, everything combined. But for that time, which, by the way, is less than an episode of a sitcom, for that time, you have to pretend that you completely, wholly deserve this. You believe in your self-worth. Whether you actually do or not is a matter for therapy and journaling and all that. But for this amount of time, the number you are asking for, the things you are asking for, are things that are fair. They're things that you deserve. All right. I don't have great advice for actually getting this confidence, because my own tactics are even more ridiculous than the dog pictures one. Like, when I first started really negotiating, I tried the Jack Donaghy thing, and that didn't feel right. So now I listen to my favorite song from Legally Blonde, the musical. It's called Chip on Your Shoulder. It's great. Highly recommend. It's like 6 minutes, 35 seconds long. Perfect amount of time pre-interview. And if I really need stuff, I watch my favorite episode of Parks and Rec. And I'm like, Leslie Knope. She did it with the flu. I can do this without the flu. Some of you actually know the episode. It's a great episode. But it doesn't have to be that. That's the silliest piece of advice right there. You just have to find something that makes you feel confident for 20 minutes. You've got this. And another sitcom reference, because I guess I have all of them. My brain is just filled with sitcoms. You don't have to lie. You just have to make believe. You can just pretend to be a different person with the same name, background, resume, different levels of confidence. Maybe they also have a pony or something. That'd be cool. All right. Tactic 4. Write a script. All right, so show of hands, who in this room, last job interview, completely remote? All right, yeah, it's a majority by a long shot. And this is the best if you are terrible at negotiation, because you just have to have a Google Doc open with everything you need to say. That is all you need. When they ask you a question that is scary when it comes to negotiation, they don't need to know that you are reading your answer from a script. Write down all of the scenarios that scare you, keep them in a document, and keep this open. I'm realizing at this point, by the way, that all of this advice just assumes that you have a lot of monitors or really tiny boxes. So I'm really sorry if you only have one. You might have to print out the dog pictures. But virtual interviews are perfect for the conflict averse. And so we're going to go over, oh yeah, this is where the slide was that I thought was there earlier. Never, ever, ever state your desired salary first. This is the piece of advice that all of us have probably heard, and many of us have probably broken. It really is useful. So here are the actual tactics. These are my scripts. Some of them I've fully written myself. Some of them I've shamelessly stolen from friends who are better at everything, but specifically conflicts. So, first interview, you get asked about anything related to salary, no number. You say, the salary I'm looking for is highly dependent on the role, the team, and the whole package. If you could please share the range that you have in mind and more about the benefits package, then I can tell you if that's something I'm looking for or not. You don't have to use the phone voice, but somehow I always do. Like that, I have never had a person respond to that by saying no. They have a range. In the US, I don't actually know if this is true for Australia, but a lot of states in the US are now passing laws where you have to have the range in the listing. But also a lot of companies are getting around that by posting like 0 to 300,000, which is very helpful at showing you where you do not want to work. All right. Now, if you've just received your first offer and never accept the first offer, even if it's more money than you think any person should be legally allowed to make, don't accept it. Ask for a little more. Greed is good in this situation. If you feel bad about it, just like increase your donations on a recurring basis, like the talk yesterday. But you received it, you want more. Thank you so much. I'm really happy to get this offer. I loved interviewing and really enjoyed all of the people that I met, which is usually true, honestly, if I'm seriously considering a company. However, with my background and experience, X isn't really what I had in mind. And I was hoping closer for this number, Y. So is there anything that we can do to bring this offer a little closer to my expectations? Usually, in my experience, they'll either immediately counter, super, super, super rare, or say, let me get back to you on that, which is when we move to my final tactic. Try and keep everything that you possibly can in email. Because if you're anything like me, your stupid little lizard brain is going to betray you in the moment. Yeah. You can think about answers before sending an email. You're not going to betray yourself with that. So my trick for this is to just pretend that I'm the busiest person on the planet and I don't actually have 5 minutes right now, but can we just do this over email? And just reiterate your counteroffer right after the initial offer. Then, when they ask to talk, keep it in the email thread. All right. I don't know if this actually helped anyone, but this really works for me, and I hope it works for some of you. Thank you for sticking through all of the tech issues. And if you want real resources, here's a bunch here. I'll post this in the Slack as well. Thank you.